Now let's finish working on the front shape of the grill and then move on to sharpening up those crease lines so that we get those nice creases along the body of the car. So let's go ahead and first just finish up what we started here on the grill. And so I'm just going to start by, let's go ahead and combine these 2 points. We just merge those together. High value here. And we'll go to our normal move axis. And just move that up. And we can kind of move some of these points over. Not worrying too much right now about the topology. When we do our inset, we can work on that topology a little bit more. And let's go ahead and move these points, space these out a little bit more. Along here. Alright, and then let's go ahead and take these points right here, and we'll just move those over. And let's go ahead and grab our world axis and just move those over here. So something along those lines. Just spread those out a little bit more. And so you can see we've got a little bit of weird geometry going on in here, but we'll be able to, again, come in and change that up. Right now, all we're worried about is the outline here. This outline coming up here. And then the outline of where we're going to have the headlight coming in as well. Okay, go and pull this down a bit. Just kind of shape that out. And we may need to come in and add some more resolution here at some point, but all right. Okay, so let's go ahead and start to just add some resolution, because if we smooth this right now just by hitting 3, you can see it's just a big blob. So let's start to add some lines, and we're going to concentrate again on the lines that we have decided on, not necessarily the A line, because that is kind of just the profile of it. It's not necessarily an actual crease on the car, but we're talking about like the belt line and the shoulder line, things like that we've already talked about. So let's go ahead and just using our insert edge loop, let's start by just bringing in some lines across here. And if you look, you can see that goes all the way across and over here, and that's going to serve to kind of hold the shape when we smooth this, so it won't be so blobby. And you can see where it's got a gap here because we don't have this cut off. That's okay. We can leave all of our, if we have anything that we need to fix later, we can leave that on the bottom, and then we can kind of reroute that as needed. Okay, so we'll go in here and just kind of right up here, I want to grab this line that we've just created and just kind of pull it back a little bit. Because up here I want it to define a little bit more of a shape, rather than just being there to hold the shape when we smooth it. I want it to actually kind of start to define more of this bulge coming in here from the front. So I'll just kind of grab these points and shape those as needed. Okay, and as we add this resolution, it's going to be good to be aware just of where that resolution is actually going, because it's not going to be necessarily isolated to where you've dropped it. It might end up someplace else, so you need to just be aware of that. So let's go ahead and drop their line right in here, kind of for that shoulder line, and in some places it may be a little bit farther apart, so we can come in and just move those together in certain areas. Okay, now up here we don't necessarily want this line to continue all the way up here. We want it to spread out. So what we can do is we can take one of these lines, just pick one, go ahead and delete this one, and then let's go ahead and select the edge loop tool, select the edge loop tool, and select that rest of that loop. You can see it right there. Okay, go ahead and delete that, and let's actually select, let's do the other one. Go ahead and undo that. Let's actually pick this one because of the way that it connects down underneath. You can see that's going to be a better one to pick. Okay, you can see where that goes up here. So we'll go ahead and delete that. And you can see how that's left us with some geometry up there, but that's okay. So now the idea is that we want to spread this out. So let's go ahead and take this point, and we can just move it over here. Okay. Bring that point, space that out a bit, and even up here we can start to do that. And then we can bring that edge back in, spaced out, and so now we've got it sharp up here and then spaced out up here. Let's go ahead and add another edge loop going along this way so we can define our shape a little bit better. Coming across here, and we'll just select all of these and work on the kind of the plan shape from the top. Kind of smooth that out a bit. Okay, and you might want to space this out. So what you could do is add an edge loop right in here, and then you could delete this guy if you wanted to. Make sure you got everything else unselected. Go and select that guy and delete that, just so things are spaced out a little bit more. Okay, so you can see where it's starting to get defined. We only have 2 edges right now, so that's going to give a little bit of sharpness, as you can see. But the more edges, if you have 3 edges, it's going to give you nice, really nice and sharp line there. Okay. So if we go ahead and add another edge right, I want to add one right here. That'll give us something nice and sharp. And then we need to do the same process of spacing these out. Yeah, that gives us a nice sharp edge. But we need to go through the same process of kind of spacing these out up here. And we can do that just by grabbing these and kind of spacing them out like this. Kind of in that way. So we're trying to maintain this curvature that we have here. So we'll just kind of space these out. And then all of these are flat, so if we wanted to, we could just snap those up to a plane from the side. Alright, so now we're starting to get some more sharpness in here. We can also start to add some sharpness around this direction. You can see where that's going to go all the way up and around here. So anytime you do this, you see you're going to have to deal with some of this resolution. Now in this case, this is definitely what we want. We want to pull this up nice and tight. Let's go ahead and pull these across, and we can get those kind of tightened up against that edge so that we have a nice sharp edge when we go ahead and smooth this out. You can see we've got our main edge defining that, and then we've got a couple edges here to hold that geometry, so that when we go ahead and smooth that, you can see it's starting to get us a sharper edge. And then we can again add resolution under here for that bottom edge. Okay, and you can see where that geometry is starting to go. You can see where I've added an edge here. It's gone all the way around, but in this case it's kind of found its own way because of how the geometry has been created. So in this case, one of the things I like to do is sometimes just cut things off so that it doesn't have anywhere to go, and then at a later point we can come in and really decide how we want to redraw that. So I'll just cut that off at that point, and we can, the geometry's fine going under there. Actually, we want to bring it right up here. That's where we want it. So now when we smooth that, that's going to be, a little bit sharper. And we may need to add some thickness in here as well. Okay, so just go along and start to add some resolution along your main edges. So we've got this main edge right here, and this one as well. Okay, so we just want to come in and start to add edges. 3 is going to give you a nice tight edge. If you don't need something quite as tight, you can have 2, and you can kind of work on the spacing depending on what kind of hardness or softness that you need for your edges. All right, and also just be aware of where those edges are going. You can see that we've got now we've got an edge up here that needs to be connected up, so I can go ahead and connect this up here. You can see we've got a little bit of geometry right in here. We can just delete those and then merge those together, and then we've got one line here that needs to be completed somewhere. So again, one of the things I'll do, you can see how this goes all the way around. If I don't want that to happen, but I do want to kind of continue it so I can figure that out later, I'll just kind of cut off a piece right in here, draw that in, and then connect it up. And try to accumulate all of our spots in here where we don't necessarily have everything connected, and we'll come in and connect that later. We're just trying to block things out at this point. Get these kind of creases lined up in here. You probably also want to add a line across here, not only to hold this point, but also to give this a little bit of a sharper edge right in here. So that's nice and tight as we come across there. So that's just that's also something to think about. You just smooth that out, and you can see, and that's going to be the edge of our canopy. So eventually we'll have this sort of cut out. But you can see where those sharp lines are starting to come in, and this is, we haven't really done anything, but it's starting to look real nice, really nice coming through here with these lines coming up and across the front. We're starting to get a nice look up here. So let's go ahead and come in the next lesson and start to refine our shapes and start cutting some of these panels apart, because you can see that we've been running into a lot of times where we're adding resolution in specific areas, and it's being carried around the whole model, and it's becoming a little bit, as you can see, a little bit more difficult to keep a handle on where that resolution is going. And again, as we talked about, that's one of the issues that we're going to run into when we start box modeling something like this. When we start adding resolution, it's going to start going in different places, and we're going to have to start really taking care to isolate the areas that we're working on, and not lose track of where that geometry is going, because you're going to find you have to go back and fix things. And you saw how it's getting to the point where we're having more and more of those areas. So if we cut some of these pieces apart, we can then isolate any sort of resolution changes that we make to that particular piece, and we don't have to worry so much about the resolution kind of going in areas that we don't want it to go. So anyway, we'll go ahead and start to do that process in the next lesson. We'll continue on with the car then.